Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I trust in you. I think we're all familiar with this prayer. We've probably heard it before. Maybe we've seen it on images associated with divine mercy. This prayer has become very, very popular since this devotion has grown. The devotion to divine mercy, which we celebrate today, Divine Mercy Sunday, began some 100 years ago when a nun from Poland, Faustina Kowalska, began receiving revelations from Jesus that emphasized the mercy of God, God's great mercy, God's heart for those who are in need. Eventually, this devotion spread as interest in her diary spread throughout the world. In particular, Pope John Paul II was a great devotee of divine mercy devotions. He, under his pontificate, made Saint Faustina, this nun, a saint, and as well instituted the Sunday we celebrate today, Divine Mercy Sunday. The message of Divine Mercy Sunday is clear. God's mercy, God's love, is greater than any of our sins, of any of our sufferings. And as we see in the gospel today, mercy is not something simply passive. Mercy is something very, very active. On Easter, we celebrate Christ's victory over death and sin. On Divine Mercy Sunday, we get to see what this victory looks like in our life, very practically. Mercy, we can better understand if we look at the Latin word, misericordia. We've talked about this before. Miseria, those who are suffering, those who are miserable, and cordia, heart. So mercy means having a heart for the miserable, for those who suffer. God's mercy is not something that holds back. God in His mercy goes out to assist, to be close to those who suffer. And we see this in the gospel today very clearly. We hear in the gospel today about someone who is suffering, Thomas. He is not there when the other disciples see the risen Lord, and he's struggling with his faith. Struggle, I think all of us have at different times. We struggle to believe. But Christ, however, does not scold him for his lack of faith, but rather Jesus goes back. Jesus wants to return to the disciples when Thomas is there, and Jesus wants to help Thomas, to give him what he is looking for. And Christ says to Thomas, "Put your fingers in the wounds that I have borne." In this way, Jesus provides Thomas what he looks for. This is a great act of mercy in which Christ, in his heart for those who suffer, goes out to assist Thomas. Divine mercy, then, is all about how the resurrection of Christ continues to be applied in our life. That Jesus, as we journey through our life and history, goes out to those who are in need, to be with us, to help us when we struggle. Today, Divine Mercy is very, very practical and has a very concrete application. Perhaps you've been following recently the various speeches that Pope Leo has given. It's become increasingly clear that Pope Leo is being very prophetic, especially as a messenger of peace in the midst of different conflicts, especially the conflict in Iran. Just yesterday, Pope Leo held a great prayer vigil in St. Peter's to pray for peace. Peace is a very concrete application of mercy. War, conflict leads to so much suffering. God in its mercy wants to assist those who are struggling through these times of war, of conflict, of devastation. We are, if we want to be messengers of God's mercy, work for peace in the world. And Pope Leo has spoken very, very strongly about this. He said most recently that we are witnessing a world increasingly accustomed to violence, a world in which the suffering of entire peoples risk being met with indifference. He laid down a strong challenge to those global leaders who are waging war. He said, "In the face of the many conflicts that continue to ravage our world, I renew my appeal. Let those who have weapons lay them down. Let those who have the power to unleash wars choose peace." Mercy, one concrete application of mercy, is to work for peace. We saw this in the gospel today. How often did Jesus say to his disciples, "Peace be with you"? Pope Leo is pointing us in that direction, that God's heart in particularly goes out to those who suffer from war and a lack of peace. and we are called to build this up. Of course, in the midst of so many challenges, it can be difficult to know what we can do concretely. It can seem overwhelming. How can we continue Christ's mission of mercy in the world? How can we promote peace? It's a famous expression you might have heard before. Think globally and act locally. And I think on this expression gives us much wisdom. Think globally. We want to be aware and concerned of the struggles that are out there. And we want, first and foremost, as Pope Leo has called us to do, to pray for peace, to pray for those who are suffering. As well, of course, we can use our votes, our different ways of activating socially to try to do something about it. We want to think globally and be aware of what is happening. At the same time, there's so much that we can do locally within our own community. And here we get inspiration from the first reading. In the first reading, we heard from the Acts of the Apostles about the early Christian community, about this ideal life of the Christian church, and how this can truly be a light to all people. We hear about a community who gather together in peace and harmony, a community that shares what they have with one another, that worships God together, a community that works towards reconciliation, a community that is accepting of all people and tries to overcome differences. We in our lives can concretely try to imitate this example we find in Acts of the Apostles by gathering in worship together, by being charitable to one another, by practicing hospitality, and by working towards reconciliation. We want, of course, as we continue this mission of mercy of God, to think globally but act very locally in our community. We have in front of us during this Easter season the beautiful Easter candle. The Easter candle is a reminder for us of the presence of the resurrected Jesus in our midst, and we're called to contemplate the light of Christ throughout this. We live, of course, in a world where there can be darkness at times, especially the darkness of war and violence, but we should never forget that we see and we look at Christ who has risen from the dead. This light of Christ always shines on the world with its great mercy. The second great symbol we have of the Easter season, and we're blessed to have the baptism, is the baptismal font or the holy water, a reminder of our baptism, in which, as we will see shortly, we receive a candle at our baptism to be that light of Christ in the world. Let us then continue to work for mercy, continue to pray for peace. But most of all, we trust that Jesus, who has conquered death, who is the King of peace, will bring about healing to our world. And let's often repeat and put our trust in him using that famous prayer of divine mercy. Jesus, I trust in you.